Hey, this is Troy Taylor with the Championship Football Coaches Clinic podcast. And this is the first podcast we have done on the Sidelines Sports Network. I'm so glad to have them be a part of this. And Reps Virtual Reality, First Down Playbook, Rack Coach, Tip of the Spear, the Top Hopper, Sports Workbook, Next Pick have all been so good to us since we started doing these back in January. But today, we have Coach Ken Hatfield on. That was the head football coach at Air Force. He was the head football coach at Clemson and the head football coach at Rice. We also have from Sideline Sports Network Clemson, Glenn joining us. So, Coach Hatfield, for the people that don't know, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Coach, and where are you from?
Well, just a quick background of me. I grew up in Arkansas, over in Helena, Arkansas, and came to the University of Arkansas 1961 and played 62, 63, 64. In 64, we were 12-0 and won the 11-0 and won the national championship. And then I went into high school coaching for a part of 1 year.
Hey, Coach, can I ask you about when you played at Arkansas? Did you play with Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones?
Yep, we were all seniors of that. There were 14 of us were seniors on that national championship team. And both of those were great players, too. Jimmy was a nose guard, very quick, aggressive, and Jerry was a great offensive guard, certainly the kind of leader you want in your huddle all the time and kind of set the tempo for everything. But both of those guys were great players and certainly did a good job. And one of our assistant coaches was Barry Switzer at the time, and I think he did pretty good too.
Yeah, I think so, Coach. I mean, and I'm a huge Jimmy Johnson and Barry Switzer fan, so I appreciate you sharing that with us, Coach. But you were a high school coach, and that means so much to me because I'm a high school coach in Richmond, Virginia at L.C. Byrd High School. And Gene Steratore just named me the most penalized coach of all time at any level, Coach. Man, I don't know if that's
got to be known for something anyway.
Man, I feel like Jimmy Johnson coaching the Miami Hurricanes. I mean, Coach, so what was it like coaching high school ball?
Well, I only got to do it about 8 games. When I graduated, I was going into the Army for 2 years. I didn't report until November, so our local team was short a coach that particular year. So they let me volunteer out there for about 8 games. And we weren't very good, but we were consistent, I'll say that. But we lost 8 games in a row, and it wasn't fun playing everybody's homecoming. I figured that if everybody's scheduled for home. But anyway, we finally won 1 game before I left, and then went to Army. They lost 1, then they won the last game. So they won a couple of games, but I enjoyed working with the young men because it was the first year of integration in our school back in the Delta, and so we had a lot of good people from all over the community come together, and football was a good rallying point for everybody in the community.
Yeah, Glenn, anything that pops in your head that you want to say to Coach?
Yeah, I mean, Coach, it's a pleasure to talk to you, obviously. Good to meet you. And just about pretty much basic questions, just asking about your journey throughout colleges, what it was like to go from a head coach of one school to a different school, like adjustments and things like that.
Well, to tell you briefly, when I did go into the Army, I had orders to go to Korea, and right before I went, I got a call and said, "This is George Terry at West Point. How would you like to come to West Point and coach?" I said, "Well, that sounds like a pretty good deal." So anyway, I went to West Point and coached freshman football for 2.5 years there. And that's where I really felt my calling all the time I was there. I felt like God was going to use me to teach leadership through the game of football, because I saw how important football was to the success of being an officer at West Point. And so I just felt during that time that's where the Lord wanted me. And very fortunate, he opened up a place at the University of Tennessee at that time as an assistant. Then I went to the University of Florida with Doug Dickey for 7 years. Then I went with Bill Parcells, who was a good friend of mine at West Point. When Bill got the head job at Air Force, I was the offensive coordinator. After 1 year, Bill decided to go to the professional football, and I got the head job there. So I was there for 5 years and at Air Force, and then went to Arkansas for 6 years, and then on over to Clemson, then finished up at Rice. So I was in college coach, 1 year high school and 40 years in college.
Man, Coach. And working at West Point, you were with Al Groh and Bob Trott and with Coach Parcells, correct, Coach?
That's correct. John Malkovich was there at the time, and we had a lot of coaches. Jimmy Deal was there, who had played football at Alabama. Bill Battle was there at the time, too, before he went to Tennessee and became the head coach at Tennessee, and then he was the athletic director at the University of Alabama. And Bill Meek was there, and Bob Ward was our defensive coordinator. He used to be the head coach at Maryland. But I learned a lot, mainly about recruiting, because I had 7 states to keep up with all the high school players in 7 states. So anyway, it was a full-time job year-round, both recruiting and then coaching football, and I just loved it.
And during that time at West Point, Bobby Knight and Mike Krzyzewski were there, correct, Coach?
Yeah, Bobby was the coach, and Mike was a player at the time. And first basketball game I went to there, the guy was sitting with us, and I watched this, and sure enough, some call went against Bobby, and first thing he did was turn around and kick the garbage can all the way across the floor to the other team.
That's my type of coach, man.
Then he said, now watch this. And so then the little lady next to him, his job was to go retrieve that waste basket and turn it around, so when he's ready to kick next time, he's going to have a smooth surface to kick anyway. So that went on the whole ball game. So I thought, yeah, I don't think I've quite seen this anywhere before.
Yeah, Coach, this is just a blessing to get to hear these stories about these legends. I mean, you're talking about Bill Parcells, Bobby Knight, Mike Krzyzewski, Jimmy Johnson, Jerry Jones. I mean, quite a few of them are in the Pro Football and College Basketball Hall of Fame. So you go to Air Force and you're the head coach. And at that time, Coach, wasn't that when you said y'all had to be a little different, that you had to run the option?
Well, I'll tell you 2 things happened. One, taking over. The first year I was there with Bill, we went 3-8, and we just had no speed on defense. And so when we took over the next year, we actually ran the wishbone part of the next year, or a dead T, because we had to shorten the ball game. We had to try to let the clock run so that our defense could be fresh in the fourth quarter. So that's what we tried to do a good bit of that first year. We went 8 games, didn't win, and then finally we beat Army in the very first game. We did win. And then after that, I knew that we were going to have to get to something that's a little different and unique. And that's when we just put in the flex bone, and we started moving the halfbacks up to the outside the tackles. And our mantra was we either got to score 40 points or hold the ball 40 minutes. That's the way we felt we had to win. So, and our kids bought into it and worked real for us. To tell you the truth, too, when I didn't know how many games we'd win because we weren't very good to begin with. And so I really tried the very first meeting we had, my first day, team together. I said, guys, I don't know how many we're going to win, but there's going to be 3 foundation things we're going to do. One, I want everyone here to be thankful to God every day that you have a chance to play college football, because there's thousands of high school kids would love to have a chance. They're just not good enough, to go to the next level. So you be thankful every day that you have the talent and ability to play. Second thing, I said, all I'm going to ask of you is to give your best this play, one play at a time in practice. If you just give me the best you got, one play at a time, the success will take care of itself. And the last thing fundamental of our foundation was we only had one rule on the team. and that was the team comes first. I said, guys, before you do anything away from us, if we're together or you're out on a date or you're somewhere, ask yourself, if our whole team is watching you do something, would it draw us closer together? If it will, do it. If it won't, don't. Those are the foundations, really, that we had for the next 40 years in coaching, and wherever we went. And I still think they were fundamental things that I hear from players that they still use today. So that's the way we got started, and then we started winning a little bit, and that helped everything.
D. Williams, coach, who is a high school coach in Alabama, says, thank you for coming on, and good afternoon, Totem Pole Nation. The name of the YouTube channel is Totem Pole because we're the low man on the totem pole, coach. It doesn't get any lower than us, coach. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Hey, someone's got to be there to hold up everybody else.
Yeah, we're the low man, coach. You don't get no lower than us, and the low man always wins, don't he, coach? Yeah.
There's an offensive line, that's for darn sure. Anyway.
So you leave Air Force and you go to Clemson, coach, as the head coach, correct?
No. The thing about Air Force, we finally had our success the fourth year there when we beat Brigham Young, who had a great quarterback named Steve Young.
Oh, yeah.
And they were dedicating their new 66,000-seat stadium in Provo. And we got the ball on the half-inch line with about 2.5 minutes to go. We drove 99 yards and scored and went for two and won the ball game 39-38. And after the game, Lavelle Edwards came up to me and said, Ken, that was a great pick play you ran for the 2-point. I said, well, Lavelle, we got it from you.
Yeah.
We've been trying all week to stop it in zone, man, and we couldn't ever stop it. So we said, heck, if we can't stop it, let's put it in ourselves. And sure enough, it worked. So anyway, we beat them, and then we beat Notre Dame that year for the first time ever. And I think those things kind of set us going, pretty good. And had another 10-2 the next year, and then that's when the job opened up at the University of Arkansas.
Okay.
And I went to Arkansas and came over here, and we were here 6 years, and we won the conference the last 2 years, 88 and 89, and had real good success here. And then I went to Clemson after that.
Well, your time at Arkansas, I mean, that was – you had played at Arkansas, correct, Coach? That was your alma mater?
That is correct. I played there, and that's why I told our AD at Air Force I didn't want to go anywhere from Air Force. I said, but if Arkansas ever had an opening and wanted to talk, I wanted the right to talk to them. I didn't guarantee I would. So as it worked out, the day came and they made a change, and so I went over there. So it was a great thrill, to run down the hill of Little Rock. The first game, I wanted all the players to enjoy what I did, and all of our teammates had enjoyed when we were players there, which they did. And so we went down. We actually ended up tied the first game 14-14, the only tie we ever had while I was there. And but anyway, they got to experience the crowd and what it meant to wear the A and do things that we had done as a player. And 20 years later, we're doing it as a coach. Was very fortunate for me.
Yes, sir. So at that time, Jimmy Johnson, was he already at the University of Miami? And did Jerry Jones have anything to do with you coming back to Arkansas, Coach?
No, Jerry didn't have anything. He had his hands full down there at Dallas.
Okay.
And I ended up coaching Jerry's son, Stephen Jones, who's his right-hand man now. And Stephen played at Catholic High School in Little Rock, and he was on our championship teams we had at Arkansas when I was there. And so, no, at that time they were doing that, but Stephen was a great player and a good person for us, too. And Jimmy actually was coaching at Oklahoma State at the time, and then went from there to Miami and just had great success down there.
Yeah, I want to ask you about a few people. Scott Wackenheim, he's been on the show twice. I got to know him at UVA and as the head coach at VMI. Can you talk a little bit about Coach Wackenheim, Coach?
Coach Wack, I certainly can do that. He was a great offensive lineman for us at Air Force, and you can see he's not very big now. He wasn't very big then, but we did a lot of low blocking, just like you say, low man wins. But Scott was a great leader, as all those kids at Air Force were going into leadership roles, once they graduated from the academy anyway. But he was part of a great group, as I say, that went to winning 4 games, to winning 8, to winning 10, and a couple of bowl games. And he was the center point of all that happening. And he coached with me, and then became a head coach. He coaches the right way. He's done things the right way. He's a very great asset. And he just played his heart out all the time and stayed in touch with all of his teammates. And they've encouraged him. And nobody's been better in the coaching profession and given more than he has done at a couple of military schools, too. So that's really good.
Yes, sir. I mean, I've known Bob Trott for a while, and Coach Trott, who is an excellent football coach, he hooked me up with Fred Goldsmith. And then after Fred Goldsmith, he hooked me up with you, Coach. So can you talk a little bit about Coach Trott and Coach Goldsmith and how great of people they are and coaches?
Well, I can, because Fred was a high school coach that when I was assistant coach at the University of Florida, coaching defensive backs, and he kind of came as a graduate assistant after great success in high school. And so he was there at Florida. We were there together. Then I went to from Florida as assistant to Air Force. And then he actually went to high school in Sanford. And then he went over to Florida A&M. They won the national championship. And he was a defensive coordinator on the national championship team at Florida A&M. And so when I got the job at Air Force, I called him. It was about 1 o'clock, I guess, down at Florida time. And I told him I wanted him to come. I said, I'm going to keep the whole staff that's there, because it happened about in March. And he hung up the phone, and his wife said, "Who was that?" He said, "That's Ken." And she said, "What do you want?" He said, "We're going to Colorado." She said, "You mean to live?" He said, "Well, you told me you always wanted to go." He said, "I just meant to visit. I didn't meant to go there and live." But anyway, they moved from Florida and came out there, and he was first year he coached the special team for us. Then the next year became defensive coordinator, and he's a coordinator for me there. And then Bobby Trott was there. Al Growett helped Bill find Bobby in June, after he graduated North Carolina, because he knew the defensive system that Al Grove was wanting to run at Air Force. So that's how we got Bobby in the summertime. And then when Fred was there, then he was defensive coordinator. Then we came to Arkansas. They all got on the plane and came with me to Arkansas. And both of them are fine. And Bobby, of course, is coaching the NFL. Has done a terrific job everywhere he's been, as has Fred. They are coaches. You talk to any player that were coached by them and mentored by them, and they have nothing but the highest regards. They know what they're doing. They know how to coach winning football wherever you're going to be. They believe in the young men, and they were a real asset. I can guarantee that. We had good careers, good time together.
Yes, sir. So Glenn's back, Coach, and I haven't got to where Coach is leaving Arkansas. He's leaving his alma mater to go to Clemson. How did that all go down, Coach?
Well, it went down in a lot of different ways, but the year before, I'd hired Jack Crow as an offensive coordinator at Arkansas, and he had been at Clemson at the time, and Danny was over there at the time, and so anyway, I hired Jack to let him be the offensive coordinator at Arkansas, and then the very next year, it seemed like Clemson was in a situation where they were going to make a change. And certainly I knew a lot more about that coming from Jack as being part of that coaching staff for quite some time. So I knew a lot about it. And sometimes it just looked like it was the best situation for our whole staff. And I always care about our assistant coaches and being sure we have situations that take care of them, because they're the ones that have to just trickle along with the head coach. And so I felt like it was a good opportunity for the whole staff to go to Clemson at that time when it opened up. And so we all got on the plane, and most everybody came to Clemson. And then Jack ended up staying and getting the head job at Arkansas for a couple of years.
Yeah. So, Glenn, anything in particular? I've never been to Clemson. My girlfriend is from Rock Hill, South Carolina, but I've never been there before. Anything in particular about Clemson you want to ask them?
So yeah, I guess a really good personal question for you is, who is your favorite player to coach at Clemson? I know you spent a few years there. You won an ACC title. Who is your favorite player, would you say, or a group of guys to coach?
I really couldn't pick out anybody, to be honest with you, because we had so many darn great players, as you well know, and good people. And I look back as an experience of us sharing our lives together. Certainly one of the most prominent people when I got there was Chester McLaughlin. And he's probably the best. He's as good a big man in college as I've ever seen play the game. I mean, he was so big and strong, and he had halfback ankles that were so good that he could run. He was just really a great player.
Where was he from? Where was he from, Coach? Where did y'all recruit him from?
We didn't recruit him. He was there when I already got there.
Man, that's a nice surprise.
He's from North Carolina, and in fact, he and I had a little falling out while we were there at the same time about not so much football, but just the way you're supposed to do things. Talk
a little bit about that, Coach, because
no, I ain't talking about that.
Nothing. No particulars about that situation, but Coach Goldsmith told me when you took the job at Clemson, you went in there and you started preaching those same three things that you had started at Air Force, and there were some, there were some, pushback from some of the players. So nothing particular about Chester, Coach, but what were some of the obstacles that you had to face when y'all staff went to Clemson?
Well, I think the biggest obstacle is that they were in a winning program. They had won 10 games 3 years in a row and won 3 bowl games. So it really wasn't a situation. Usually you're going into a situation where you can add something new or build something different a little bit. This was a totally opposite situation. And anyway, so everybody there already knew a style and a system that they were recruited to that had been very successful. And so coming in, there were certain things I believed in too. And I think that was the hardest thing, for us meshing those two together, right away. And at the same time, the biggest thing I wanted to do is learn lessons for life, to graduate from Clemson where it means something to them the rest of their lives. And so it was a healthy growing experience, I think, for everybody involved. And Clemson and their fans are second to none. They were as enthusiastic and supportive, as you could be. And they just were really behind the team all the time. And it's a great school, and they've won national championships and done everything, you expect. So, but anyway, as I say, Chester and I had a little disagreement, and several years later, he stopped by our offices in Rice University and talked to a couple of our coaches that were there with him there, and just shared how he had accepted the Lord and made a big difference in his life. And I always had a share time speaker to talk to our team before every ball game, kind of share their football or sports experiences, but also want them to share their faith. And so we had one before every game. And so you never know when, one of the players takes something in and so it happened. But anyway, Chester came and shared what a difference the Lord had made in his life. We've just hit that and his wife. And it really was good hearing it, because about 2 years later, he dropped dead. He was assistant coach at Stanford University at the time, and he dropped dead at the time. But I'm just glad to know he had his faith with him all that time.
Anything else you can think of, Glenn, that you want to ask him about Clemson?
I mean, obviously, you did come into a winning program. You covered one of my biggest questions there on the difference on coming into a winning program where you're used to coming into a program. Typically, a team doesn't let go of their coach after 3 straight 10-win seasons, but Clemson's situation, obviously, at that time was a little bit different. So that was another one of my big questions, but you already covered that. So on the topic of absolutely just Clemson, I mean, Weapon X. Other than that, how was that?
Well, one thing I really was fortunate. Went back to their football banquet a couple of years ago. Dexter Davis, one of the players that was there when I got there, was been given a Lifetime Achievement Award on what he has done with his life.
Amazing person.
And so anyway, I enjoyed the football banquet, and Dabo and all the coaches were really nice, and my wife and I enjoyed that. Just took everything in the modern day Clemson and where everything is now and what's going on, and it was good just to see the experience and the environment for all the student athletes going there now and what they're getting from that all the time and what they're gaining. It's a tremendous. I enjoyed it and very blessed that we were part of it to see everything going on there at Clemson today, and also to celebrate Dexter and kind of represented all those players, were there when we got there. So it was a good moment.
For sure. Yeah, we often get recognized as a cult to some fan bases. So definitely a great together family environment there.
That's right. No doubt about it.
What is it like running down the hill, Coach? And I'm probably maybe calling it the wrong thing because I'm just ignorant.
No, you got it right.
You got to touch the rock first and then run
Yep.
down the hill. If you don't touch the rock, you're in trouble anyway. Y'all know, I tell you what, I kept seeing it. I told Barney Fair, who's on our staff here at the time, I said, Barney, let's go out today after practice when it's dark. I want to practice running down. Because if you run down the first time without practicing, you will fall. I guarantee.
Oh, you're falling. Yep. I felt my first time.
I guarantee you get halfway down there and then it flattens off and then it takes off again down. And you're running hell bent for leather down there to start the first part. Yeah, I'm going to get down to the bottom. Next thing you know, you're tumbling all the way down to the bottom. So anyway, we practiced at dark so I could be sure to know when to slow down and gather myself. Anyway, it's an experience, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, I love it how now, I don't know if y'all did this, but the bus will pull up and the whole stadium will be full, and that place is rocking.
We still bus to the stadium. The players still bus to the stadium. 2023, and we bus to our stadium from the locker room.
Hey, when you get on that bus and you start, the word gets out up in the stands, they're loading up. It's just a slow roar that starts right there and then just kind of spreads to everybody in the stadium. And the bus are going so slow around there where all the team can hear everything. It just gets louder and louder and louder until you finally can get there and get off the bus. It's quite an entrance, that's for darn sure.
Yes, sir. And we didn't mention, but Coach, in 1983, you won the Bobby Dodd Coach of the Year award, and that's the highest honor, isn't it? The AFCA Coach of the Year and the Bobby Dodd Coach of the Year. Can you talk a little bit about winning that, Coach?
Well, I didn't. I mean, both those things just go to the team you had, and they're voted on by the coaches and the people. I think the Bobby Dodd was certainly very special and meaningful from what Coach Dodd stood for in playing game the right way and being sure your players graduate, of seeing you learn fundamentals from the game of football that help you in life. And he's been known for that. And that was kind of a real surprise. The AFCA thing, too, there's so many good coaches in that. I was just really shocked, but very appreciative of, the opportunity to win that award that year for all the work that all those players had put in. and remember the days, from losing the first 8 games the first year, and then getting winning 2, then 2, then 4, then 8, then 10. Everybody at Air Force kept getting better and better and playing better and better. We beat Army and Navy both the last 2 years we were there, and then beat Notre Dame twice. I think the second Notre Dame win had as much as anything to do with winning the award, because we beat them at their place 23-22 after we'd beaten them the year before at our place. So I think that game probably had as much to do with just the vote counting, as anything else.
Yeah, and that Bobby Dodd Award, Coach Goldsmith told me y'all are getting ready to have a golf tournament, and all those guys that are still living will be there. And Glenn, I know you got to go to work, but is there a question you may have about any of the legendary coaches that Coach may have known or coached against? Glenn, anything like that you'd like to ask him?
Yeah, I mean, how about the mindset of going in, not exactly against a specific coach, but going in against a legacy coach, a coach that is battle tested, been through it, is somebody like a Jim Harbaugh or a Dabo Swinney, standing on the other side of that sideline. Is there a different approach at all, would you say, to the game, or is it same thing, same old, going through the motions?
Well, I think you have the utmost respect when you do that, giving the other team the benefit of the doubt and knowing they're going to be well prepared, number one. That's just a given because they've already proven that. Other than that, I think you figure out your job is to figure out a way to beat them. I don't care if they're over there and they've been coached 50 years. Your job's to beat them. So, you've been spending all that time of preparing yourself, what's going to give you the best chance to win this game. And so you spend a lot of time, but after the game, I think when you go and you shake hands and you're appreciative of the competition and what all that week had meant to you and things you as a coach personally benefited from by playing someone that is going to force you to play at your high level all the time. I think it's an honor and it's a joy for our game when you get a chance to do that. And I think it helps coaches on that maybe aren't up that stature learn something and feel part of something. They'll learn something anytime you play one of those coaches that has been very successful. You'll learn a little something when you're watching their film during that week that I guarantee you'll take with you the rest of your life.
That's amazing.
Who are some of those guys that you felt like that about, Coach, that you went against? Paul Bear Bryant?
No, ain't that old now. My gosh, right now. Well, Jimmy Johnson certainly was there. We played them at Arkansas when he was at Miami. We played him a couple of times there. And certainly played Lavelle Edwards, who's also in the Hall of Fame, and Bobby Dodd winner and all those. We played them and fortunate enough to beat them one time. Notre Dame, anytime you're at Air Force playing them, you're always the underdog. That's always big. George Welch was a great coach at Virginia, but before that, he was at the Naval Academy, and playing them, we're always brought out the best in you. And down in Texas, all of them, too. You play Spike Dykes. Spike was one of the best all-time people, too, and David McWilliams, and just, everybody that we play, even Hawaii. That was the most interesting thing. We actually played Hawaii several times when we were at Air Force, and we even played them first year at Arkansas here. So that was a unique experience. It don't matter who the coach is there. You just had all those distractions over there right in front of you. And but I learned something from everybody, that we're fortunate enough to play against, and it was a blessing.
Yeah, Glenn, anything else? I know you got to sign off.
Yeah, that'll do it for me. It was an honor to be on here. I'm very happy to talk to you, Coach. I will definitely be tuning in the rest of the podcast. So,
yeah.
Thank you, Glenn. And keep up the good work here. Clemson's a good program, and I really enjoyed my days.
Much appreciated. And you guys have a great rest of your day as well.
See you. Talk to you soon, Glenn.
That's right. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
So, Coach Hatfield, I have a big, long message here from Dave Keeney. Dave Keeney, Coach, has left a big message, and he says, "Tell Coach Hatfield." I gotta pull it up, Coach. Yeah, I think I lost my picture, but that's all right. Tell Coach Hatfield, yeah, Coach, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. Tell Coach Hatfield hello. He came to Penn State in 1987 to visit, and he and Coach Goldsmith tried to hire me at Arkansas. This is Dave Keeney. I was going to learn the video, run the athletic dorm. However, the dorm director didn't think I could do both jobs. And so they wanted my wife to run the athletic dorm, and I didn't think it would be good for her. I wish we could have made that happen. I believe it would have been a turning point in my career. I eventually went to work for Dick Tomey at Arizona. And then let's see. I think this was a big, long message, Coach. Was there another one? Was there a second part to that, Dave?
I remember some story vaguely there. Dick Tomey, though, was at Hawaii for a while, too, before he went to Arizona. And he was coaching out there when we played them in Hawaii. But, yeah, I remember going to Penn State, watching practices, talking Coach Paterno, getting some ideas of what they were doing at the time. Actually ended up hiring Ron Dickerson off their staff to come to Arkansas, as a matter of fact, later on. Ron Dixon came to Clemson at that time, and his son played for us at Arkansas. So it was a good trip to Penn State. I remember that. And the other things working out, hey, the dorm would have been easy. Tell him it isn't that bad. It would have been easy. The dorm was nice living. I lived in the dorm. When I was a student, we were very nice to the house mother.
Yeah. Yeah, totally, Coach. So,
Yes.
so you left Clemson and you go to Rice, Coach, and you stay there for the rest of your career. Talk a little bit about that. Going to Rice and what that was like.
Rice University is in Houston, Texas, right across from the medical center. Certainly a great, great school. And in the 50s, they were one of the stalwart teams that the Southwest Conference had. In fact, they actually beat Alabama in the Cotton Bowl. And Dickie Magle that day, a running back for Rice, rushed for 195 yards against an Alabama team. So they had a great history. In their stadium, they actually played the Super Bowl there at one time. The stadium seats 72,000 people, and so of course over time, the professional football came to town in all sports, football, basketball, and other things, and it's just hard to maintain that interest and enthusiasm. But they stayed in the Southwest Conference for years and years. And Fred Goldsmith had gone from Arkansas to be the head coach at Rice, did an outstanding job there. He recruited Texas for us at Air Force and at Arkansas, so he knew all the coaches. They liked him. He did a tremendous job recruiting. Then he left and went to Duke. Mm-hmm. And when he went to Duke, then I went to Rice. And so there was a carryover. I knew the type of players he had recruited, the type of people, and the first year we were there with all the players that he had, we were able to beat Texas for the first time in 29 years.
Wow.
And actually went on and tied for the Southwest Conference Championship. And I'm looking right now at a Rice ring, which is as pretty ring as I've ever seen, that all the players got for being co-champions of the Southwest Conference that year. So it was a good place in the Southwest Conference when I had both played in the 60s and coached there at Arkansas through the late 80s and now back again during that time. So I knew a lot of the coaches in the area we were going to recruit. I had good coaching staff. wonderful a university that supported you, and a lot of good players in the area close by. So we thought we'd always have a competitive team, which we did. We had good players, and we were always competitive, and played a lot of Big Ten schools, Northwestern, some people like that, and out of the Big 12, some Kansas State folks, and then played our conference schedule. And then during that time, the conference has changed a lot. We both went to Mountain West, then we went to Conference USA, and so they're still trying to find, exactly where the best place they fit in. But it's a great stadium, wonderful people, a lot of recruits close by. You can still learn every lesson in the game of football. You can learn anywhere. You can learn it at Rice University. So it's a great school, and I still would have anybody consider it would be very fortunate to do that.
Yes, sir. So during that time that you were at Rice, you were the president of the AFCA, correct?
I was. Yeah, I was on the other rules committee for a while. And then I was there 1 year. I got to be the president. Yes.
Well, talk a little bit about the AFCA and how important that is for coaches to be in, and what's the benefits, and what was your experience like when you were the president, Coach?
Well, the good thing about the American Football Coaches Association, it's run by coaches, and it's for the betterment of the coaching profession, from junior high, high school, college, and pros, whatever. Anybody can be a member of it by joining the association and learn the benefits of the information that's given out, the clinics that are given out, the speakers, and the newest things, update you to keep you up what's going on in football in general itself. But it's a tremendous organization. Todd Berry is the president now. Charlie McClendon was, as you know, to begin the organization. Grant Taft was a tremendous leader for a long time with the AFCA, and Todd Berry has taken over now, and it is one that any coach at any level can benefit by it. They put out so much information on the internet that keeps you up to date with the best coaches and new techniques that are going, and but they get together and try to solve problems for the good of the game. And they're needed now more than ever with all these changes that are going on.
Yeah, and Dave Keeney, he has another question, Coach. People that are watching online, it's a live stream, so they can, they can comment on Facebook or comment on YouTube and ask a question. So it's pretty cool. It's interactive. Dave Keeney says, Troy, ask Coach why he thinks that some schools, especially in this NIL era, are not looking to run the flex bone, wishbone, or play more option football, especially since Paul Johnson had success at Georgia Tech. Well, I'm going to say something first. When they fired Paul Johnson, I can't remember what the coach's name was that took his job, but he pretty much said that, that they were going to change the culture. And, well, we saw how he changed the culture. Paul Johnson's a Hall of Famer. So, Coach, you're an option guy. And it's funny he asked that because I was going to ask you, when you went to the option, when you went to the triple, did you stick with the triple? And that was a long question that Dave asked. But what do you think, Coach? Why have more teams not gone to it?
Well, the main thing is today and age with the recruiting, professional football can big up there is one that deciding. 3 years ago, I believe it was, all three service academies ran the triple option, and they all won their bowl games that year.
Mm-hmm.
They're one of those are maybe three of the only places in America that your fan base will allow you to run that. Knowing the main thing for all the academies is teach those cadets of wherever they are is how to win. You want to win a battle. You don't want to just play in a battle. You want to be a leader for America.
Amen.
So it's a way they can learn and equalize it when really they don't have that many players that come to the academy that are looking long range to going into the NFL. So I think it fits exactly that kind of environment. And the more people don't run it, the harder it is to prepare for it in only 1 week's time. Those programs can have success doing it. The other thing happening today is two things have changed. One, the high school association have gone into 7-on-7 football in the summer, which was to install your passing game all summer in a non-combat,
contact, yes.
Contact environment. And that's what everybody did, and it made the skilled people so good, and backs having to catch the ball out of the backfield and things like that. That was a way that a lot of programs that had good 7-on-7 in the summer could equalize not having as good an offensive lineman maybe to protect for long periods of time. And then they started seeing where they could have some running game out of it, and it came to where it is now, where you have both option, misdirection, drop back pass, a lot of things, and everything revolves around your quarterback. And the other thing going on today with the transfer rule, all the quarterbacks and everybody, number one, they developed to be an NFL quarterback, and which they do. And the other thing, of course, now, though, is with the NIL, those quarterbacks that are going to develop to it, they want to get paid big money in college, not wait to go to the pros. So it's changed the game, but the few people who would still run the option attack are going to be very, very successful. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, I mean, and you coach what you know. And I mean, there aren't many people that really know it anymore. The guys that coach at the service academies, maybe there's some small colleges. And then, I mean, people are running the triple from the gun now, which everybody knows it's not as good because the quarterback ain't as close to the line of scrimmage. So I guess football has just developed, and heck, who knows? Maybe one day somebody will go back to it. So just getting to anything else about Rice, Coach? You spent a lot of time there. Anything else you want to talk about Rice before we go to like maybe some present day stuff? Talk about the state of football.
Well, Rice University was, as I say, they never wavered in their academic environment for getting kids in school. So everybody that came was going to have a legitimate chance of getting a good Rice degree and continue to give back to the university. It has continued to maintain and enhance the school. There's not very many students there, but it's a good college experience because they don't have fraternities or sororities. They have colleges that are co-ed where people live together. So it's kind of a different situation. But you get to intermingle with all the students that way in your own college. And it's just an institution that's done so much for America. And the good thing is only a limited number of players are anyway. And so it's a great environment to play football. And there are a lot of good players there. I'm very fortunate to have been at Rice. And Bucky All's house is one of our all-time friends. He played football at Rice. And he has really been a mainstay of helping keep Rice competitive all the years, even with the other things that are going on around them.
When you said that Rice has done a lot to help America, is that through NASA? Is that what you're referring to, or is there some other aspect that Rice has done to help America, Coach?
Well, one thing about it, I think Rice has the second highest endowment in America. It's second only to Harvard University. Which means a lot of their graduates give money back to the university. And that's a good telltale sign when you have people from all walks of life that want to continue to give back and keep the most modern technology and the professors and the things you have to do. That's a real credit to them, which they've continued to do. And so, I mean, the opportunity's there to do whatever you want. They're in a good city, Houston, Texas, a lot to do there. Certainly the space being so close, NASA is certainly a benefit. The other things, the medical complexes are right across the street from Rice. Several hospitals are right there. It's just really a good school, and the people that care so much about it, everybody gives back to the school. That's part of the legacy. If you went there, everybody ends up giving back to the school.
Yes, sir. Now, I was not prodding about the Chester McLaughlin situation, but Dave Keeney has asked Coach Troy, how tough was Frank Broyles to work for, being the former head coach there at Arkansas? So, Coach, I'm not prodding you, with this question, but what was it like to work for Coach Broyles?
Well, two things. Coach Broyles at that time, when I first came there, he was also an ABC announcer, with Keith Jackson, and they doing a lot of games.
Wow.
On TV. And then
he's the AD.
There,
he's the AD, and he's on TV.
Right.
Man.
He was doing that. But soon after I got there, they changed and they quit doing the ABC games. And so he was around a lot to see, everything was going on. Coach Broyles and the association that he had built Arkansas to where it is today, with Orville Henry and the radio programs. He just made a state where everybody felt a part of the University of Arkansas. And they organized the Razorback clubs, and he spent all his time. He came from Missouri, and he came over here and knew it was going to be a great place where there was only Division 1A school at that time playing in the state of Arkansas. He just did a tremendous job of organizing and letting everybody feel a part of the program, especially down there when it was always Arkansas against everybody else in the Southwest Conference, everybody else was in Texas. So it always an Arkansas-Texas thing the year round. That's what you were always fighting, and it was always part of your life each and every day. The Coach Broyles, I think, has done everything, every decision. There's no doubt in my mind that he had, he thought was the best for the University of Arkansas. I don't think there was any doubt about it. He and I disagreed on some things, which I think happens at a lot of different times. But I've never doubted anything that he didn't always try to do what he thought was best for the University of Arkansas and the athletic department. He and I didn't always see eye to eye, but, we're two different people. So that's just part of life.
Yes, sir. That's a great way to answer that question, because that's the question a lot of these young coaches, when they go into an interview, that's one of the trap questions. They say, give us an example of a time when you maybe had a disagreement with the superior, and how did you handle that? And these coaches sometimes will say, well, I've never had that happen. Well, that's not true, So like what you just said, Coach, he's the boss. You're not always going to see eye to eye, but you are a good soldier and you're loyal. And you do what you're told. But eventually, if you had a chance to go somewhere else, I guess you did. So am I on the right track with that, Coach, that question? Because a lot of guys mess that question up in the interview process.
Well, I think everybody has to have, you got to do what's the right thing to do. And so that's something that, you guys, depending on each situation, what it is. The biggest thing is that both people know what you agreed to when you come in to start a program, whatever it is. And as long as you're staying on that path, to do the things that you both said you would do, then it has a chance of working if you stay committed together and working together. And that's always what you're trying to do, is get everybody to work together and see both sides of situations and then go forward with what's best. And so, but at the same time, you got to coach what you know too. You can't just change and go do something because someone else is doing it. It may be good for that other program who's having great success. That may not be the thing that's good for you and the players you have. So just because some people are doing something good somewhere else doesn't always mean it's the right thing to do, right where you are. So I think there's always time for discussion to see the pros and cons of the newest things that are good and deciding what's the right way to do. And I think you always do. That's the other thing. And I told people before, at different times, I said, look, everybody's got a boss. If the boss is going to fire you, always has the right to fire you. It don't matter there. So, I mean, that goes without saying. It doesn't matter. So the biggest thing is being true and doing what you doing everything. If you're doing everything that you promised you would do when you came in there as a coach, that's all you can do. You can't do more than what you promised you'd do. And if you succeeded in doing what you said you'd do on the right things that count, that matter, then that's all you can do. Somebody wants to fire you, hey, they can fire you. They've always said there's only two types of coaches. There's those who've been fired and those who are going to be fired.
Amen.
So you're going to be there pretty much one time or other. Very rare is the coaching situations gets a chance to retire, when he thought it was the right time to retire.
I mean, I just think
that's part of it.
I think of Bill Parcells. Eventually, they're going to ask you to get off the train. That was like his thing, Coach. And if they'll fire Bill Belichick and Apple will fire Steve Jobs, then they'll probably fire you. So I mean, it's
it's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen, Coach. You can't win them all. That's what my dad always told me. Troy, every Friday night, look in the paper. Every Saturday morning, look in the paper. Every Sunday morning, look in the paper. All right. Monday morning, half the teams win and half the teams lose. That's part of it, isn't it, Coach? Some people,
right.
How about this, Coach? Everybody wants to be the head coach. There's these guys now coming out of high school. I had one about maybe 6 years ago. He told me he was a GA. He said, well, I won't coach high school unless I'm the head coach or I'm a coordinator. I said, dude, you've never coached before. You think someone's going to let you be their coordinator? So talk about that, Coach. Everybody, and now that he got to be the head coach, 6-7 years later, he's like, man. I said, dude, when you become a head coach, you're going to learn so much. It's like dog years. So talk about that, Coach. Everybody wants to be the head coach until they're the head coach.
Well, I've always felt really when you talk to people that coaching is a calling. It's not something maybe that a guy wanted to do, but I think it's something that God called you to do.
It's our ministry.
It's a ministry. It's a way of working with young people through the game of football that will make a difference in their lives and in thousands of other people's lives. That's the calling of coaching. And there's no doubt some of the best coaching taking place in junior high and high school football, because that's where you have to pat the guys on the back. You've got to encourage those who you see a future for them. A lot of times they don't see it, but they have the talent if they'll just continue to do so. That's where the real coaching is developing the young men. The pros, they recruit the best players, and the worst teams get the best players the next year. That's what keeps the equality going right there. And colleges, though, you got to take players, and you can recruit people you want. You don't have to take someone because they're a talent. If you don't want to coach them every day, don't offer them. So it's an entirely different thing you can do. Recruiting is the key for college football, and development's the key for high school and junior high football. And but that's a calling, I think. And I'm here today because my junior high and high school coaches loved me enough to kick me off the team when I got the big head and did the wrong things, and I needed to get my attention. They loved me enough to do it. It worked. But they're the ones that I think back of that were the encouragement at the right time when I needed it. And it all starts. But I think God places you where you can have the most influence for his goodwill, whatever level it is.
Amen, Coach. Do you think that some of the young coaches with the Twitter and with the Facebook and all this social media and, I mean, I saw a guy on his Twitter. He said offensive guru. I mean, Coach, he must have never really called plays, because that's pretty humbling. You know, you'll figure out pretty quick you ain't a guru. All right. So what do you think that?
Don't worry about that.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, I work for Joe Taylor, Virginia Union, and he said like coaching is our ministry. So, you know, we've been on here an hour already, Coach. I mean, if there's anything you could say to the high school coaches out there about coaching is our ministry, about, you know, there's all these coaches, they're worried about moving up. You know, they want to get to college, or they want to get to the big school, and just what's on your heart about that, Coach?
I think you do is you just grow where you're planted. And I think at the same time, be the best coach you can be wherever you are for whoever you're coaching with. And study, look at each player, try to give them the best opportunity to be they can best and enjoy football, because there's no guarantee they're going to play a senior high ball. There's no guarantee they're going to play college ball. So it's up to you to teach the fundamentals of the game about getting beat at time, of getting up and giving your best the next play, of giving up a touchdown pass and then jumping right back. The next play is ours. So many opportunities about life that are all going to make a difference in that person's life. And if you do that and you're committed to doing that, God will use you. He'll place you in a place where you can be most effective. There's no doubt about it. That means you still stay in touch with other coaches. You share ideas. You meet people, and sometimes maybe one of them gets a job. And he says, I remember that one talk we had a couple of years ago. That guy's a good person. I like it. God works in mysterious ways. But if you take care and be the best coach you can be right where you are, and I guarantee you, he'll use you there. And that's what it's all about one day, is did you do the best you can with what you had at that time.
Amen, Coach. Dave Keeney. Amen. Dave Keeney has really enjoyed this talk, Coach. He's got another question. Yeah. How close did Coach get to recruiting Eric Mitchell and Keith Jackson to come to Arkansas? Both went to Oklahoma. Did they have the bigger bag? Did Oklahoma have the bigger bag, Coach?
Oklahoma and Keith Jackson, because we recruited two teammates of his the same year, Ricky Williams and Anthony Chambers. And he was a pretty good player. He could play a little bit of any place. It didn't matter running back. He could play quarterback if he wanted.
I remember him. He played for the Eagles, didn't he?
He did it. Yes, he's great.
Yeah, I remember him for the Eagles.
Coach Switzer did a real good job recruiting him, and certainly was a great player for OU, you know, all the time he was there. And Eric Mitchell was a situation he was going to be, you know, he's a great option quarterback, but, you know, they were running the option a lot already, very successful at OU, and so he goes there. But because Eric went there is the reason we got Quinn Grovey, who won 2 championships for us here, because he's from Duncan, Oklahoma. He had wanted to go to OU his whole life, but when Eric Mitchell went to Oklahoma the year before he was recruited, then Quinn came to Arkansas and started 3 years for us, won 2 championships for us. Now he works here full-time at Arkansas. So everything has a way of working out for good. And Keith is even back in Little Rock, Arkansas, with a PART program, really helping kids, underprivileged kids, through Little Rock and everything, through the game of sports, help them in their academics and their athletics. And he's done a great job back here in the state, giving back to young people too. So I think it worked out for all of them.
Yeah. So Dave said, I loved Quinn Grovey. That's what he just said in the messages, Coach. But Coach, yes, I've had such a good time on here with you. We've had a blast. I'm going to press end here on the podcast, Coach, and we'll just sit here and talk for a second. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good deal for it. All right.
I'm just going to